This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi, friends. I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. We're still with Samuel. This little kid is just sitting there in the middle of the night, has heard his name several times, thought it was Eli, ran down the hallway, and then Eli tells him, "Oh, it's God. The next time he calls your name, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" This little boy, somewhere between the age of 9 and 12, he replies to his name, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." God tells him that he's going to carry out everything that he spoke against his family from the beginning to the end. Then God goes on to say, "For I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God, and he failed to restrain them." God is telling Samuel, everything that I said was going to happen is going to happen, and I'm not going to stop it. I think about this little boy going, "Okay, God, what am I going to do with this? What am I supposed to do with this?" And this is the first time he's hearing God. God, the Almighty, the creator of everything, is telling a little boy what's going to happen next. Previously, I would have thought God is going to rain down on Eli because Eli didn't tell his sons, "Hey, this is not what we're doing." But I've been living this last week in this verse, and I understand it differently. I understand it way differently. And it's not about God punishing Eli or his sons. You can read it that way. And if that's the way that you want to read it, and if that's the way that you want to believe that God is, that's your choice. But I read it differently. I think I read it differently because I have a relationship with God, and I can talk to God about it. I can say, "God, you told this little boy that you were going to punish Eli and his sons. Like, why would you tell a young kid this information? What's he going to do with that?" As I was going through the things that I was going through this past week, I realized that's not God's intention. We each get to have our perception. What I've been going through allows me to have a different perception than what I had in my previous life. When I read this, it's not about God punishing Eli or Eli's sons. It's about reactions happening after an action took place. God is just telling Samuel what's going to happen, not that God is creating what's going to happen to Eli and his sons. This had already started. This had already been coming because of the actions that Eli and his sons had taken. God lives in every single one of us. God experiences everything through us. Like I said in the past, good or bad, God experiences it. We can co-create our life with God. We can bring God in on the decisions that we make. and live our life that way, or we can do it on our own, and God is just here along for the ride. God's like, let's see what's going to happen. Let's roll the dice. That's our choice. Eli's boys who were priests. So not only was Eli a father, he was also their boss. That must have been hard on Eli, trying to do both. But whether he be playing the father role or the head priest role, either way, his action of not setting his boys down and saying, we're not doing this, or his action of not wanting to disappoint his sons by calling them out, was going to cause a reaction. And that reaction was not going to be good. God is telling Samuel, everything is going to be carried out, because God already knows what Hophni and Phinehas are going to do, because God lives within them. God says, everything I spoke about from beginning to end is going to be carried out. I also think one of the biggest things of this verse is that God is telling a young child who would have no idea what is going on. He would have no clue really what this meant. Giving that information to this child, knowing that Eli is going to ask about it. God was telling Eli, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I've been trying to let you know what's going to happen, but you keep ignoring me. He sent the unnamed man. Now he's giving the message through a young child that would have no clue. And Eli has to listen. I think back to my life. How many times God tried to tell me something and I wouldn't listen. How many times God tried to get a message to me and I ignored it. I was so involved in what I wanted to do and what I thought was right for me in my life that I never stopped to listen. But I'm also going to give myself grace because I never thought to call on God. It's not that I wasn't taught that. In a way, I was. My mom was very religious. In fact, I used to refer to her as a Bible thumper. But I was so scared of God because of how I was taught. I was taught to fear God, not call on God. I was taught that if I did things wrong, that God would punish me. But as I'm understanding God and as I'm having a relationship with God, I am understanding it a lot differently. Because it's not God punishing me. It's reactions to my actions. Those reactions are going to be good or bad. To me, it's very simple. If I studied in school, I got an A. If I didn't study, I got an F. Action, reaction. And my whole life, I haven't understood that. I was taught if I was naughty, God would punish me. If I was good, God would reward me. But I've already proved to myself that's not how it works. Because for the previous years of my life, I'm going to say the previous probably 40 years of my life, I didn't have God centered in my life. I still had good things happen to me. I also had bad things happen to me because there were reactions to my actions. It wasn't God sitting somewhere up high, watching over me going, well, she did that. Let me go ahead and create this. Well, she did that. Let me go ahead and create this. God wasn't doing that. God is inside me, living every single one of the experiences with me and through me. Everything I have done in my past, God has experienced it. When I created chaos, God was there going, whoop, the reaction from this action is not going to be great, but I'm here for it. And if she wants to call on me, I'll hold her through it. Because God is not a punishing God. God is a loving God. Everything God does is in love. We are the ones that create our chaos. We are the ones that create the things that happen in our life. Even in this verse, God is saying, I'm not going to stop what's going to happen. God's telling Samuel, he's going to let everything happen that's going to happen to Eli and his sons because of the decisions they have made. Could God stop it? Of course. God is the God of everything. God can do anything. But God's not going to stop it because that's not how life works. We're going to have to live the outcome from the choice that we make. I look back at my whole life and I see the choices that I have made. I can see why the reaction of my actions were what they were. If I would have known then what I know now, my life would have been different. Of course it would have, because I would have made different choices. But I'm here right now in this space, learning, growing, understanding. And isn't that what this journey is about? If I knew everything, what would be the purpose of this journey? If I was going to only experience fantastic things, how would I grow? I look back at my life and I can see how much I have grown. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary of my divorce. I thought that maybe I would be angry, upset, sad, any of those things. But I'm not. You know what I am? I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I had that experience. I'm grateful that I experienced that marriage, that time with the person that I experienced it with. I am grateful that for 5 years I was married to my best friend at that time. I'm grateful for the lessons that I learned during that marriage. And I'm grateful for the journey that I had with that person during that time. But can I look back and see where that marriage was eventually going to go? Of course I can. I didn't want to see it then, but I can see it now. I can look back and see all the reactions from our actions. And eventually it was going to lead to not being together. But in those moments, I wasn't living in the future. I was living right then. Did we both make some mistakes? Of course. But we can't take them back. We can't change what happened. All each of us can do is choose to learn from the experience and say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that now I understand what I did. I'm grateful now that I understand what the reaction from my actions are. I'm grateful that I can grow from that period in my life. I'm not regretful that I had it. I'm not sad that it ended the way that it did. I'm grateful. And that's with everything that I've looked back in my life and said, Let's see what I did there. Hey, God, I'm sorry you had to experience that with me. I'm sorry that I did that, but it was part of my journey. So I'm never going to regret the things that I did, but I am going to learn from them. I could choose to be the same person that I was in my past, but I'm choosing to live a different way. I'm choosing to experience God in a different way. Religion is not my bag. It's not the way that I want to experience God, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Every one of us gets to choose how we want to experience life, God, our relationships, everything in our life. We get to choose. Sometimes we let other people make those choices for us. That's the way you want to live your life? Fantastic. In my past, I've let other people make my choices. And from that, I've grown. I've learned that I don't like the reaction from that action. I've allowed myself to make decisions based on what people thought of me. I don't like the reaction from that action. In my past, I've made decisions based on my unworthiness. I don't like the reaction from that action. I've made decisions and not involved God in my decisions. I don't like the reaction from that action. In my past, I've kept myself small because I needed to keep myself safe, and confining myself in a small area felt safe to me. I don't like the reaction from that action. I can look back now and see that for most of my life, I don't like the reaction to the actions that I've taken. It's not God telling me to change. It's not God handing judgment to me. It's me deciding I don't like the consequences of my actions. I don't like the things that have happened in my life that have caused me anger, sadness, harm, keeping myself small, not being who I am, not letting my authentic self just be. I don't like any of those things. And that's not God doing anything. That's me making choices for myself, saying, I don't like it and I'm not doing it anymore. I want to experience my life differently. Therefore, God gets to experience my life differently. God never stopped what I was doing. God just let me be. God just experienced life with me and through me. It was me making all these decisions that weren't good for me. Now that I'm living my life differently, I have something to compare it to. And living my life this way makes me feel better, makes me calmer, less reactive. Living my life this way makes me feel grounded and centered. Living my life this way allows me to make decisions that are the best for me. It's not God making the decisions for me. I am making the decisions for myself with God. Not because God is standing in front of me, shaking his God finger, saying, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. No, it's me going to God saying, I think I should do this, but I'm really not sure. So I'm going to wait. And hey, God, your servant is listening. In my past, I made decisions quickly. I didn't think about them. I didn't get grounded. I didn't even know how to do that. I was just trying to survive. But in my life now, part of Lord, speak for your servant is listening means, God, I'm just going to sit here and wait. And I'm going to listen to myself. And I'm going to feel what my body is telling me. I think a lot of us didn't know our body tells us things before our brain even processes it. Our nervous system is such a beautiful tool that God gave us when God created us. When we tense up, when we're making a decision, that's usually your body saying, meh, you might not want to do that. When you feel grounded and centered and easy, that could be your body going, hey, that's probably a good decision. Let's do that. I've realized that I could feel chaos in my body before I started chaos. But I was so wound up in my past and I was in survival mode that I couldn't feel what my body was telling me. God gave us these tools inside our bodies to help us, to guide us. God is part of us, and God is speaking through this body that God designed for us. We were made in God's image. God said, let me help you out. I'm going to give you some tools inside you that can assist in your decision making. But when we stay in survival mode, and I know this because I stayed in survival mode for so long, I couldn't use the tools God gave me. I didn't even know I had a tool bag. All I did was keep going. I've used this past year in my life to really understand the tool bag that God gave me, to understand each tool that God so precisely gave me. One of those tools is understanding there is always a reaction to an action. I can't go back and change anything in my life, and I wouldn't. I would not change one thing, not one experience, not one person. I wouldn't change any of that because I wouldn't be here right now today, finally understanding this life that we were given to live is not just an existence. It's a journey, and it's a journey full of lessons. I've always said I never really liked school. I didn't like sitting in the classroom. I didn't like being confined to a desk. I didn't like someone just talking at me. I've always learned better when I could do it. Even in the jobs that I've had, I've always said, show me once, give it to me, and let me do it. Then tell me what I did wrong, and I'll fix it. I've always wanted to just do it, get in there. It's taken me to this point to realize my whole life, this entire life that we're given, is about learning. And as much as I did not like school, I love this. I love living this life and learning. And I wouldn't change one single thing. But I know going forward, I understand it now. I get it. And it's taken me 50 years to get it, but I get it. Now, for the rest of my life, I understand there's reactions to my actions. And going forward, every action that I take is going to be based on how can I experience life to the fullest. I want the journey that God has with me to be the best journey that God has ever experienced. That action is going to create a reaction. And that reaction is not only is God going to have the best experience, but I'm going to have the best life that I could have never imagined.